this clearly. They're selling you choice. Why are they selling you choice? They're selling you choice because everybody wants choice. My wife loves choosing to change the colors of the rooms and painting. She loves to move around the furniture and make changes, and it's all her choice. And I say, that's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. But don't ask me to do it. In this case, they're asking a doctor to have the right to directly cause your death. Is that about choice? Suicide is about choice. This is about directly and intentionally killing somebody. That's what it's about. And an assisted suicide is about directly and intentionally being involved with killing somebody. And we have to look at the story model. Some of you might have stories to tell, because the fact is many people have stories to tell. Because the other side is very effective at that. We produced this video. Turning the Tide. What happened is I was on CHCH TV. Who's ever watched CHCH TV? I was on the show where they have a little debate for a half hour, I think. And what do they call it again? Anyway, the fact is I thought I did a great job that day on the show, and then the guy from Dying with Dignity started describing a story he had just had someone phone him about, which was a very terrible story. It was this person who was describing was very much suffering. Guess what? My emotions are moved by another suffering person. Absolutely. Doesn't mean we should legalize euthanasia and assisted suicide, but I knew by his story that he told, I knew I lost the debate. It didn't matter how good a job I had done on trying to defend my position. We all are moved by suffering. So, we created this video to talk about people who would be affected by legalizing euthanasia and assisted suicide. Turning the Tide, if you've seen it, it's exactly what it tries to do. It's based on the individual and how it affects people who are vulnerable. And there's my information. I also have Facebook. If you want to join our Facebook. What's very interesting is we've been very successful in trying to defeat Bill C-384. I think Francine Lalonde's on the run. Now that's going to be on YouTube soon, me saying that, but I think she's on the run. And I believe that's why she keeps backing it off. She was absolutely happy when the Quebec physicians came out and said they wanted euthanasia legalized. Now let's look up their arguments. I think we should do that again, just to understand their arguments. They were saying that the use of high doses of pain management drugs, analgesics, is sometimes the same as euthanasia. Well, it's not euthanasia to intentionally want to kill pain. If you accidentally kill the patient, that's not euthanasia, as long as you are following the protocols to kill the pain, not the patient. Now, of course, if I give you this massive dose of analgesics saying, oh, I'm trying to kill the pain, but I'm knowing I'm actually killing the patient, I'm intentionally doing so, I think we should be concerned about that. That would be abuse of the use. But to try and kill the pain is not euthanasia. It's very clear. They know that. They know that. So what they're doing is they're creating confusion. It's not about trying to kill pain. And there are protocols in place to follow that you're not killing the patient. The second thing they said is, well, the sedation. Well, in very difficult circumstances, sometimes we need to sedate somebody. And we understand that because, if you can see that someone is significantly suffering and they are receiving high doses of pain management drugs and they're still suffering, obviously it's better to put them into a sleep mode without causing their death. And they said, well, sometimes this is the same as euthanasia. Well, actually, no. The abuse of sedation is sometimes the same as euthanasia. That's correct. When you abuse the process, if I intend to sedate you and you're to die, I didn't intend to kill you. If I followed the protocols and I'm not intending to kill you and you're to die, well, guess what? Every day in medicine, we intend to do something, and sometimes, not often actually, but sometimes people die. Is that murder? No, it's not. Absolutely not. It's unintentional. So we have to understand, this is about intentional killing, euthanasia. It's about intentionally. And if they think that we should allow the abuse of these techniques to be considered okay, well, remember, euthanasia is illegal now. If they were to legalize it, if they're saying the abuse is okay, what would happen after they've legalized it? I think we have to be very clear about this, what they're actually saying. They're really trying to create confusion. That's what it's about. If you create confusion, then the public will say, oh, yeah, it is happening every day. Well, maybe we should legalize this, and on we go. People don't understand that this is about giving your doctor the right to kill you. If you think about this further, if I were somebody who had significant medical issues, I don't think I would want my doctor to have the right to kill me. You know, the fact is once I'm dead, who's to know different? They'd say, oh, it was because they chose it. I don't know, I'm dead now. And you have to prove that I chose it or didn't choose it. I think the decision would be made that I chose it. Right? I might not have chosen it. You never know, do you? The fact is in the Netherlands, at least they're somewhat honest. The last report in the Netherlands that came out was the 2005 report, and it said that there's 550 people who died that year who had not requested it. 550 died by euthanasia who had not requested it. But what's very interesting about that number is that doesn't show up in the euthanasia numbers. So let's get these facts straight. People will say, oh, there's only so many euthanasia deaths every year in the Netherlands, and they say, well, wait a second. The Dutch are actually very precise in their numbers. So they actually are, they're very precise. So if there's 2,300 euthanasia deaths last year in the Netherlands, that doesn't include assisted suicide. So assisted suicide is different from euthanasia, isn't it? I've already defined it. Their definitions are clear. So assisted suicide, there's about 400 of those every year. And then there's the deaths without request. Well, the Dutch know that if it's a death without request, it's not euthanasia. So that's outside of the numbers. So you have to start adding in that number. Well, that would be about 500 or 550 a year. And then you start adding up the numbers. So that's where you get these fantastic numbers starting to come out. And you have to also realize when you think about this, someone says, oh, well, there's 100 and some odd thousand people who die every year in the Netherlands. That's right. Most people actually die rather instantly of conditions. There's only a small group of people who actually die over a protracted period of time. So you have to actually take the percentage of people who died in that country over a protracted period of time who could have been euthanized and who actually were euthanized. And you start realizing it's not this 1 or 2% at all. It's actually a far greater number. It's a far greater number. And you have to put it all in perspective that it's about somebody else causing your death. So are there any questions? Yes?
I've always wondered about this question. Have you seen the movie Saving Private Ryan?
I have seen the movie Saving Private Ryan.
The scene where there's the guy that's been shot and they gave him too much morphine. Is that euthanasia? I've always wondered.
Okay, so this is a movie that obviously would create some thinking around that issue because if they intentionally gave, now first of all, let's be clear about morphine. When we talk about it, there's very few people who actually died by morphine overdose. They like to use that example because morphine's a common use of drug, right? And it can't kill you. The fact is, it's not a good drug to kill you. In the Netherlands, they don't use morphine to kill you. They just don't do that. In Oregon and in Washington State, they don't prescribe you large doses of morphine, so you can take a large dose of morphine. They don't do that because mostly it doesn't kill you. Okay? So what does it often do? It puts you into a sleep. But of course, the movie industry will use these cases. So if they intended to give a large dose of morphine to cause the person's death, that would be euthanasia, yes. Because the intention was to cause death. If they gave a large dose because this guy was screaming in pain, and you say, well, that's only intention, what's the difference? Well, actually, it's actually quite clear. The dose that is needed to kill your pain is very different from the dose that's needed to kill you. Morphine's not a good killer.
So the movie's inaccurate then, that's what I thought.
Well, there's, what was the other movie?
It seemed like in order for them to get rid of the pain.
Well, the English Patient, that was another case. In the English Patient, he was receiving morphine all along, right? And he was in pain. And at the very end, they gave him like the whole dose, and he died. The fact is that he had been received. So what happens when you receive morphine? You get used to it, right? So you know about a little bit about it. It's the same with most drugs. Our bodies get used to certain drugs. So what happens is if I'm receiving morphine, I don't have any morphine in my system. So you give me a shot of morphine, you might be able to kill me with it. My body has no tolerance to it. So you start with low doses, and then you have to increase the dose. So there becomes a time when someone has had cancer for a long period of time, if they've had a lot of pain, they might actually be receiving what would be a lethal dose for you, but for them, it's the dose they need to kill their pain. Is it killing them? No. Their bodies become tolerant to it. It's not killing them, okay? So here, in the case of the English patient, he's receiving morphine for a long period of time, and suddenly they give him this big dose and he dies. It would actually, it would probably have put him to sleep, not killed him. It's not a good killer, actually. So people want to talk about morphine as this big killer. It's really not the greatest killer, no. It's very unlikely you can kill somebody with it.